The Health Ministry in the Israeli-occupied West Bank says a Palestinian man died during an overnight raid on Ramallah, which is the seat of the Palestinian Authority. Fuel bombs were thrown at Israeli military vehicles. A United Nations report warns the human rights situation in the territory is rapidly deteriorating. It urges Israel to end what the report refers to as unlawful killings there. Opinion polls show Palestinian support for Hamas is growing in the West Bank. They also indicate the Palestinian Authority, which governs the area, is losing support.
A pro-Hamas rally in the occupied West Bank. For years, few people in the Palestinian territory supported the group, which is recognized as a terrorist organization by the EU and the US. 3 months of war have changed that. In September, support for Hamas was just 12% in the West Bank and 38% in Gaza. But in December, that support rose to 44% in the West Bank and 42% in Gaza. The polling in Gaza was conducted by Palestinian political scientist Khalil Shikaki, mainly in person during the ceasefire earlier this month. Reaching people by telephone in the besieged territory is almost impossible. The poll also shows that Mahmoud Abbas, the leader of the Palestinian Authority, which officially governs the West Bank, is extremely unpopular. Only 11% approve of him. Meanwhile, the war has also brought an increase in tensions and violence between Israeli security forces, settlers, and Palestinians in the West Bank, further radicalizing the population there, many of whom see Gazans as heroes and say Hamas was right to attack Israel. The U.S. has said it envisions a post-war future where the Palestinian Authority governs Gaza. But as Hamas gains popularity, the idea of a Gaza run by the PA seems less and less viable.
Joost Hiltermann joins us from the International Crisis Group. It assists policymakers on conflict prevention. Your support for Hamas, tell us more about these latest polls.
There is not really anything surprising about the poll results because we've been seeing since October 7th a spike in popularity for Hamas in the West Bank. In Gaza, it's very hard to gauge at the moment because of the conditions there at the moment. But what we've seen is that, and I think what we need to understand is that in situations of war between Israel and Palestinians, the group that stands up to Israeli violence from their perspective is going to always become more popular than any group that doesn't. So at the moment, the Palestinian Authority, which was anyway losing support for its poor governance, is not getting any public support for its current stance, which is to say nothing. Whereas Hamas is actually fighting Israel, and that is hugely popular among the Palestinian public. But if you look at situations of non-war and just military occupation, which has been going on for 56 years, then Hamas has less popularity because as a governing group, people distrust its ideology, or many people distrust its ideology.
And as a governing group, where was Hamas in the polls before this war started?
Well, it was only a governing group in Gaza, of course, not in the West Bank, where it was in opposition. And in Gaza, it was also losing popularity because it couldn't really actually govern the Gaza Strip under an Israeli siege. And for any number of other reasons, when you see governments throughout the region not particularly effective at providing services to their people. Hamas was facing popular demonstrations against its poor record of governance in Gaza in the past year, for example.
So would you say these figures are a flash in the pan, that this is a win as far as the polls go for the underdog, but looking back to the October 7 terrorist attacks, how does that throw a light on things for the group?
No, it's not for the underdog. It's because Palestinians generally reject the Israeli occupation, which is extremely brutal and has been going on for 56 years. And so they support anyone who is willing to put their lives on the line in order to get rid of that occupation. And today it's Hamas. Tomorrow it could be someone else. In fact, an entire population in Gaza is being radicalized right now. And so it could, and in the past it was the PLO. Now, so that is what determines things. And people, unfortunately, don't look at the methods used in fighting an illegal occupation by Israel. Just like Israel doesn't look at the means that it is using in the assault on Gaza. They're only looking at the end result and in the notion of a just war, just as it is a right to fight against a military occupation. But the means used, like on October 7th, targeting civilians, is unconscionable, but that doesn't really enter into the calculation of many people.
Joost, where does all of this then leave the Palestinians at the end of the day?
Well, with much greater destruction, certainly of the Gaza Strip, and a deep, deep fear that they will be expelled both from the Gaza Strip and from the occupied West Bank into Jordan. That is where they are today. And at the moment, with the current government in Israel seeing being unprepared to move toward a political solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, it is very hard to see a way out other than through continued violence and occupation in both the West Bank and the Gaza Strip.
Joost Hiltermann from the International Crisis Group. Thank you very much for being on DW News.
Cheers.
For more, we're joined now by journalist Hazem Baloucha. Hazem reported from the Gaza Strip for more than a decade. He's now in Jordan's capital, Amman. Hazem, tell us more about the growing support for Hamas in the West Bank. What are the main factors behind that?
It's not easy to judge currently because despite all the polls, of course, it's obvious that the popularity of Hamas in the West Bank is increasing and the popularity of PA is decreasing. But it's important to mention that the last election was held in the Palestinian territories was 2006, and Hamas won that election, or the majority of the seats of the parliament. One of the main reasons that is Hamas is gaining popularity is the vision, which is we are talking about two visions about Palestine, two rivals. Fatah is believing in peace process as the way to establish the Palestinian state, while Hamas believing in armed struggle as the way. While there is a deadlock of the peace process, so the other side is gaining.
Talk to us about the Palestinian Authority. It has suffered a dramatic loss of trust among Palestinians in the West Bank. Any ideas why that is?
Well, this is not recent. As I just mentioned, that the PA lost, or Fatah lost the election in 2006 because of many reasons. The main reason is the political one. Second is the economy. PA is not able to pay the salaries because of Israeli deductions of the Palestinian money or the taxes that delivered to the Palestinian Authority. Israeli daily incursions. Last night, there were several Israeli incursions across the West Bank, Ramallah included, Jenin, Hebron, Beit Lahem, Tulkarim, other cities, daily arrests. The Palestinian people in the West Bank don't see that the PA or Fatah is doing enough to protect them or to feed them.
So what does this leave Gaza and its people? The Israeli military won't let Hamas retain power there, but Gazans would not welcome the Palestinian Authority there either.
That's the question. It's not easy to say and to talk about Gaza right now. If you ask people on the ground from Gaza currently, they would say we would see anybody, but we need the war to be over. This is the main need they want. In Gaza, they don't see the PA or Fatah as a survivor or rescuer because they suffered from them. I mean, Hamas won the election before. Hamas was there for 17 years. Hamas is deep and close to them, and it's an ideological movement. They work hardly close to the people, while Fatah and the PA abandoned Gaza. Many people or public servants, despite that the PA kept paying their salaries, the ones who used to work before Hamas took over in 2007. But many of them, they were fired or their salaries were deducted over the years. So they didn't see that Fatah is doing enough for them and as a rival. So I would sum it up that the gain of power of Hamas, one of the main factors that the absence of the rival, and Fatah didn't fill that gap.
Hazem, thank you very much. That was Palestinian journalist Hazem Balusha.
Thank you.